One recent Sunday morning, Chuck Callan was taking out the garbage from his stately Victorian home and clad only in dirty gardening shorts when a motorist startled him by leaning out her car window and snapping pictures. "Had I known, I would have dressed," said Mr. Callan, the senior vice president of Broadridge Financial Solutions Incorporated. The gawker wasn't interested in the half-naked executive. Her subject was his grand view on Hudson home they residence where Betty Friedan wrote The Feminine Mystique, the groundbreaking 1963 book that launched the modern feminist movement. Owning the famous figure's home offers both perils and pleasures. Tourists eat into privacy, and contractors savvy about historically sensitive renovations eat into the pocketbook. On the other hand, there's the unique thrill of living under the same roof as someone who made an indelible mark on U.S. history. And experts say a well-preserved historic house generally gains value. Robert Carr, chief executive of Heartland Payment Systems Incorporated, ended up with Woodrow Wilson's 1896 Tudor in Princeton, then Jade, after his 2011 divorce. His ex-wife, Jill Carr, said she left him the house because she couldn't afford its $70,000 annual property taxes and costly upkeep. The Carrs spent 51 months restoring the home where the future U.S. president lived until 1902 while a university professor. The effort, he said, is an example for how history should be preserved for others. John Castle, CEO of private equity firm Castle Heartland Incorporated, shelled out nearly $11 million to buy and renovate the Kennedy clan's former beachfront estate in Palm Beach, Florida. The project, which included adding bathrooms number 14 and 15, required 300 inspections. President John F. Kennedy wrote his inaugural address at the 14,500-square-foot mansion, called the Winter White House during his term. Mr. Castle kept the same unlisted phone number that JFK had used there. America's historical housing stock depends on owners like Messrs. Castle, Carr and Callan continuing to see more upside than headache. The bulk of historic houses in America are preserved by virtue of the private individuals who own them, said Tom Mays, Deputy General Counsel at the National Trust for Historic Preservation. They feel the connection that place brings. Mr. Callan paid $1.63 million in 2005 to buy the high-ceilinged Italianate home once owned by Miss Friedan in part to inspire his four daughters to become capable women standing on their own 2 feet, he said. The Friedan link was a selling point. The 6-bedroom house, built in about 1868, overlooks the Hudson River. Ms. Friedan moved in with her husband and 3 children in 1958. There, she wrote about the feminine mystique that kept educated women in domestic isolation. She worked in longhand on yellow legal pads at a living room desk or table in the octagonal dining room, said her daughter Emily, now a pediatrician. The instant bestseller transformed the frustrated suburban housewife into an activist. Ms. Friedan co-founded and became the first president of the National Organization for Women in 1966. The weekend after she died in 2006, nearly 100 Friedan fans turned up at her former residence. Mr. Callan encountered several of them on his front porch. They started to turn red and left, he said. Others wandered into the driveway. The homeowner soon locked horns with now over a proposed memorial to the famous feminist. Mr. Callan said the organization wanted to adorn his curbside sandstone wall with a large marker complete with bas-relief sculpture of Miss Friedan. "I didn't want undue attention," he said. Muriel Fox, the co-founder of NOW, said the organization only proposed a small plank. Instead, a large marker with the sculpture was erected near the village hall a year ago. Emily Friedan and Ms. Fox still yearn to see a plaque placed on the home perhaps after the Callans move. "Something great happened in that house that changed the world," the physician said. The 71-year-old Mr. Castle, the millionaire merchant banker by age 28, already owned 3 residences before he acquired the furnished Kennedy estate as his primary residence. He likes to show off President Kennedy's narrow bed with its carved Gothic oak headboard and a walk-in closet drawer labeled in the careful script of matriarch Rose Kennedy black underwear. John F. Kennedy interviewed most cabinet candidates in the library of the stark white Mediterranean compound and swam in the Olympic-sized pool the weekend before his 1963 assassination. In 1991, the compound was the scene of an alleged rape by William Kennedy Smith, a nephew of JFK's who was ultimately acquitted. The Kennedys sold the property in 1995, and Palm Beach declared part of the mansion a landmark after Mr. Castle bought it. Designation as a local landmark replacement in a historic district typically limits a homeowner's ability to make exterior changes. In Mr. Castle's case, he had to agree not to alter a 60-foot portion of the wall where the president occasionally gave news conferences. Mr. Castle said souvenir hunters frequently showed up during his $6 million renovation of the 11-bedroom mansion, put chunks of brick in their car, and drove away. He also had to cope with strict demands from local officials. "We had an inspection every day," he said. "One inspection failed," he said, because a screw near an electrical connection was 1/8 of an inch out of alignment. Another time, preservation officials limited the height of the new indoor/outdoor spiral staircase that Mr. Castle was building to enjoy a grander view of his 205-foot ocean front. Today, Mr. Castle relishes living amid 62 years of Kennedy family history. He especially likes to unravel knotty word problems while seated in the mansion's outdoor loggia, where President Kennedy crafted his inaugural speech and overlooking the sea. "You get an enormous sense of inspiration," Mr. Castle said. Restoring the Wilson residence turned into a lengthy labor of love for Mr. Carr, a longtime U.S. history buff who bought it in 2003 for about $2.1 million. The house had remained vacant for 2 years and gone through 19 owners since Woodrow and Ellen Wilson left. "There was very little preserved," he said. Mr. Carr wanted to recapture much of the house's original character and update its amenities. His efforts were guided in part by his review of Wilson's correspondence about the home's construction. The renovation cost more than $7 million and lasted until spring 2007. "There was no budget and no time restrictions," Mr. Carr said. "It seemed like the right thing to do as the custodian of a bit of history." Except for a new solarium, the 3-story residence with pale lemon stucco walls looks from the outside as it did 110 years ago. Mr. Carr even pulled up the concrete circle driveway and replaced it with the type of red stones used by the Wilsons. While showing a visitor around, Mr. Carr paused in the unusual foyer with a fireplace where Mr. Wilson, the Princeton University professor, often taught his students as a fire ward. To restore the foyer to its original condition, contractors disassembled, structurally reinforced and reassembled the room using the same individual pieces of vertical grain fir. "This room and the ceiling are exactly the way they were when Woodrow Wilson lived here," the chief executive said. Despite his attention to detail, Mr. Carr worries about Princeton's proposed creation of a historic district that would cover the Wilson home. "People tell you if you can't paint your house," he said, "it may not help the resale value." He and other disgruntled owners wrote a letter protesting that the district would significantly chill the market for owning and investing in these homes. Princeton officials declined to comment, but in the September report recommending creation of the district, the town's Historic Preservation Review Committee said supporters cited studies showing a positive effect of historic districting on property values. Meanwhile, the executive loves to celebrate his home's famous former owner. He threw a 158th birthday party for the former president at his home in December 2006. He gives talks about Mr. Wilson's life at local schools. And in October, he hosted the centennial celebration of President Wilson's election. As an extra treat, his 530 guests could view a newly framed note in Mrs. Wilson's handwriting that restoration workers found behind the fireplace frame. "It's a privilege to live in a house like this," Mr. Carr said.